Hello and welcome back from the break in your award-winning Wham City Lecture Series. So like I said, this evening has been modeled around the historic day that it just happened to fall upon. The next person, my good friend Mason Ross, the lecture series has been going on for several years, and he hadn't given any lectures until last season. He talked about vampires. And usually I don't have people give lectures back-to-back seasons, but he wanted to talk about this thing, and he was just so pumped about it, and it had to be on September 11th, because it was about a terrorist. And so then a couple of weeks ago I said, Mason, you still up for September 11th? And he's like, oh no, I got a job, I can't do it. So I said, okay, that's fine. And I got it covered. I got somebody else to do it. And I told him, Mason, don't worry about it, I got somebody else covered. And he's like, oh no, I'm working somehow with my job so that I can do it. So then I had to ditch that person. So here's Mason. Who put me through that terror to talk to you about this terror. Hi.
Okay. So I fell in love with John Brown when I was 18 years old. And I wanted to do this lecture for a while, and I fucked up. Because what I did, I already knew a lot about John Brown. What I ended up doing is I wanted to be like, oh, well, maybe there's some stuff that I'm not going to talk about that I wish I would have. I didn't know at the time. So I ended up doing like 20 pages of research, and then I was like, okay, so where do I start? And I had no idea where to start, and it drove me insane, and I've been freaking out about it. So I eventually had to calm down and kind of ask myself, why do I love John Brown, and why would I want to talk about him? Why is he one of my favorite people in history? So I didn't come up with this. This is actually at the Great Blacks and Whites Museum. This is the title card for John Brown. And this, like, and I'm really gonna jump around. I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna be scatterbrained about halfway through this. But this kind of sums up why I want to talk about John Brown, because I hit spacebar to continue, right?
Good try.
Yeah. Great. So, do I want to talk about John Brown because he was an abolitionist? No. No. If I just wanted to talk about an abolitionist, I could talk about Harriet Tubman. Beautiful quote, I freed 1,000 slaves, I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. It's a fucking awesome quote. She was a very successful abolitionist. She freed thousands of slaves, and on top of that, she was really poetic and just had this really, really beautiful life. Why don't I just talk about Harriet Tubman? So John Brown, most people know about John Brown because of John Brown's raid. And John Brown met with Harriet Tubman and begged her to go with him on this raid. And she said no. And he asked her over and over and over again. She said no, and she really wanted to go, but she knew the outcome. She knew better than John Brown what he was going to be dealing with, I think. Or maybe not. I'll get to that later. But after John Brown died, he was executed. She publicly announced that sometime in her life, she was going to do some great act dedicated to this man, because she didn't join him. So she went on, she joined the Union Army. She started off as a cook and a nurse. She worked her way up until she was an armed spy and scout, and she actually led this raid, the Combahee River raid, and she freed 750 slaves in 1865, and she dedicated this to John Brown. Awesome. So again, I'm going to talk about John Brown. She did this in honor of him. We're going to talk about John Brown. Why don't I talk about Frederick Douglass? Usually Frederick Douglass is pictured as like this old, usually the photographs of these are like the old wise man Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass is like fucking 60. Actually, I had another picture. He looks like a classical composer, you know? He looks like he should be screaming at a violinist, you know? He doesn't have the passion in his hand. But that was Frederick Douglass's legacy. Frederick Douglass was an ex-slave, and his whole thing was that he wanted to be a black man in a white man's world, and be a black man, but really be a black man in a white man's world, to make that that commentary. John Graham didn't have any friends. I might say he had no friends, except for Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was his only friend. I'm going to actually